You guys are on
Hi,
mute.
everyone. Welcome in. Thank you for being here today. We'll get started in just a few moments. This webinar is also being recorded today and will be made available on Nature Canada's YouTube channel afterwards. If you have any questions throughout the presentation today, please use the Q&A function at the bottom of the tab here, and we'll make sure to respond to you if we can throughout the presentation or afterwards, as we've left a lot of time today for question and answer. Thank you so much for being here today. We're excited to talk to you all about the interconnectedness of nature and policy within a municipal landscape. Shortly, the chat will also be made available for you to introduce yourselves and where you're calling in from today. Although our virtual webinar is headquartered in Ottawa, Ontario, of course, it's quite smoky from the wildfires here today. I woke up and the sky was orange and my apartment smells like campfire. And this hasn't been something that I've experienced living in Ottawa for the past 7 years, so it's quite jarring. And if anyone else here on the call today is experiencing wildfires nearby, our thoughts go out to you all. But I did want to take a moment to acknowledge that Nature Canada's office is located in the untraditional, unceded, and unsurrendered territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. They've lived on this territory for a millennium. Their culture and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. We recognize that we all work and live in different places, and therefore on different traditional Indigenous territories than others here today. We encourage you to take time now to reflect on where you're joining us from, and maybe share with it in the chat below. And that being said, I'll change slides here now to our agenda. Just the top 6 things that we'll be looking at today. We hope that participants today will leave with an increased knowledge of municipal advocacy for biodiversity preservation and how Nature Canada's organizing team can help to support you in this journey. And with that, I'll pass it over to my colleague Rakshan and Paul to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. My name is Rakshan Balachandran, and I'm the Nature Network Organizer for Reforestation at Nature Canada. So it's a pleasure to be with you all today.
Hello, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. I'm here in smoky Ottawa as well. I sat outside just so people can watch my eyes burn and cough. I'm the Senior Nature Network Organizer working on nature-based climate solutions.
Hi everyone, my name's Autumn Jordan. I use she, they pronouns, and I am the Urban Nature Organizer at Nature Canada, overseeing our Bird Friendly City program. So who is Nature Canada? I'm sure many of you here on today's call have heard of us before, and that's why you've attended the webinar. But if not, we're one of the oldest national nature conservation charities in the country. We work with folks across the coast, from coast to coast to coast, to protect parks and wildlife, species at risk, etc., as well as encouraging individuals to get outside and discover their nearby nature. As we're all members of the organizing team, we work with more than 1,300 nature and conservation organizations to help them defend, protect, and restore nature within their own communities. Oops, sorry, wrong way. There we go.
Great, thanks, Autumn. Yeah, so Nature Canada isn't necessarily a boots on the ground organization, but with our national scope and reach, we work with and support organizations like yourselves across the country with their projects and campaigns. And that's what makes our nature network our greatest strength. So our network is made up of you all and over 1,300 nature organizations across Canada, as Autumn mentioned earlier. And each of these groups are actively involved in one or more programmatic areas, such as protected areas, bird-friendly cities, and oceans. So what we're noticing is that organizations are increasingly becoming more involved in nature and biodiversity advocacy efforts. So we're realizing that it's important to help connect the dots between grassroots efforts that groups are involved in and the decision makers who can speak up for their communities.
Sorry, I changed the slide early on you there, Rakshan. But yeah, as Rakshan mentioned, our organizing team works on a variety of different program areas. I work on bird-friendly cities, Rakshan works on our reforestation program, and Paul works on nature-based climate solutions. Reforestation, bird-friendly cities, and nature-based climate solutions, or NBCS for short, are three of Nature Canada's program areas. And as you can see here, as we know, ecosystems are all connected, especially, when it comes to birds, trees, and of course the ecosystems that they call home, which are can be nature-based climate solutions in a variety of different ways, in which my colleagues will get into a bit later on today. But speaking specifically about bird-friendly cities, the program works towards making urban and built environments safer for migratory birds by reducing key threats such as cat predation, pesticide use, collisions with window and vehicles, as well as stewardship and monitoring initiatives to protect birds. And yeah, Rakshan, would you like to chat about the reforestation program?
Yeah, for sure. So the reforestation program is essentially geared towards planting more trees and reforesting both urban and rural landscapes. So it's trees, especially in urban municipalities, are really important, not only because they serve as important habitats for birds in an urban environment, but they also provide essential ecosystem services for urban residents, which include temperature regulation and stormwater management. And these are, our urban forests and forests in general, and our reforestation efforts are integral, when we're trying to advance our climate change adaptation and biodiversity objectives. And I'll hand over to Paul.
As we know, these urban forests are also effective nature-based climate solutions themselves through provisions of ecosystem services. They also help tackle social economic issues such as climate change, disaster risk management. Other examples of nature-based solutions that are more localized can include green roofs, rain gardens, and wetlands. And each of these factors that we have discussed are clearly interconnected. So it is important to understand that when we're advocating for one of these components is equally significant to acknowledge the importance of each other concepts, also advocate for them as well. For example, if you're an organization in bird-friendly cities, you may find it meaningful to advocate for greater urban forest cover, which is also a nature-based solution. And we also have a paper online on forest equity. So, we've done, we talk about that in a few more slides.
Paul, would you like to as well chat about the importance of municipal advocacy and how it's related to all three of Nature Canada's program areas?
Thank you. Yeah, so previous to working at Nature Canada, I worked for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and I was a representative for the Green Municipal Fund. So, having that 13 years of municipal experience on the ground, I really got a good understanding of exactly how municipalities work. And, as frustrated as we, as nature organizations get, we, need to understand that these folks are humans as well. And, a lot of times, once you build that relationship, you'll understand that, a lot of times these are allies. So, we're really, trying to connect the dots between the ground action and needed policy to protect nature, and then also advocating at the local levels to increase our impact and our reach, and again, to build those relationships with the key decision makers, which we will discuss as well. Autumn?
Thank you for that, Paul. So this is an interesting paper from 2017, Evidence-Based Advocacy for Municipal Climate Change Action, in which a variety of Metro Vancouver municipal staff and employees were surveyed and asked how they thought that they could local climate change initiatives and work against biodiversity loss within their own roles within a municipal landscape. You can see here, this is just an excerpt from figure 3, what some of those who were surveyed said that they saw that they could make a change within the municipal landscape, which is super interesting. You can see the top one here is adaptation services and assets that they feel municipal practitioners control. The second one being aware of latest climate change information, therefore presenting those facts to council to reduce the risks and health and safety for residents while providing technical assistance and educating external organizations. You can slowly see that it starts to change as the list goes on. And if anything, this is where constituents and passionate folks, such as many of yourselves here on the call today, come in to make that change within their municipality that they hope to see. And Paul's going to take a minute here to chat about the different effective relationship building techniques within a municipality itself when it comes to advocating for nature protection.
Thanks, Autumn. So in my experience, when I worked for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities and currently, you know, a lot of these people, like my boss, when I first started, she said, you know, my job was to support the champion. So usually on each municipality, there's a champion, either an elected official or a staff person. And, you know, when I worked with the municipalities, a lot of these people are very similar to us and they really care. And so, you know, to be able to find that right person is critical to find, you know, again, that elected official or that staff person, and to, you know, to be able to build that relationship. And as we know, you know, life's all about relationships. And so once you have that champion, then you know, you want to be their ally. And a lot of times, like when I did my master's on complex systems thinking focused on sustainable communities, I did my paper, a few papers on the city of Vancouver. And what my research showed was, you know, a lot of times you can be the bridge between those different silos. And as you build the relationships within the municipality, so to really, you know, get a good understanding of just, you know, where the barriers are. And as an outside organization, sometimes, you know, that can be, you know, a key part is, you know, just connecting those right people together. And, you know, a big part of it, like everything, you know, to be able to do your homework and, you know, make sure that what you're asking for is clear, have a really good understanding of where they're at as well, because like I have a number of different groups I'm working with on nature-based solutions. And, you know, I'm reaching out to the city and having a good conversation. So again, you know, building that bridge between the two organizations and, you know, making that relationship, you know, respectful and that, you know, you can even build friendships with these folks. So that's, you know, from my experience, those are what I've gathered. And so with the building relationships, again, you know, it's so important to be able to identify and connect with that decision maker and connect with the right department as well, because that's another critical piece. And every municipality across the country is different. So, you know, once you find that champion to build that relationship, you know, so many times it will, again, you know, look at you as an ally to be able to help you through this. And, you know, one of the best places to start is, you know, with the environmental planning. I know a lot of Rokshan's work, you know, he just goes and starts meeting with these, the staff in the urban forestry departments. And one of the easier ways, especially in the larger communities, is to connect with the municipality's environmental committee. That's usually, you know, the best place to start. And if the municipality doesn't have an environmental committee, it's a good place to start by bringing that in. As I'll put it in the chat. But I noticed ICLEI, which is the International Council for Local Environmental Initiative, they actually have a pilot project where they're doing it the complete opposite way, where we're, you know, empowering groups on the ground to work with municipalities. ICLEI is actually having all this materials, this, like I say, a pilot to teach municipalities how to work with folks like who's on this call right now. So it really is, you know, they are looking for folks like us with that, you know, that on the ground knowledge to help move their agendas forward. And yeah, I guess the big part, like all relationships, is to be kind. You know, I can speak for myself where when I was younger, I was definitely an angry environmentalist. So, you know, again, it's to be able to go in and to look at where you can help. Be prepared. You know, a lot of what I do is you know, ask a lot of questions, and that old saying, there's no such thing as stupid questions, where, you know, you are a citizen of your community, and they like to, you know, they all have time for you, and to be able to go in and, you know, have your questions well formulated, and get a good understanding where the city is, and then, you know, go back and you know, take a look at it again. And a lot of these times, you know, this information is in their municipal plans or their bylaws or policies. And yeah, that and again, as Autumn mentioned at the beginning, we're here to help and to help coach you through this. You know, again, it all comes down to relationships and how to build those friendships, to be able to you know, get to know them personally and where their connection to nature is. Like, we all, you know, everyone on this call has a connection to nature somehow, and that's why we do the work that we do. So it, you know, similar, once you you know, have that relationship built, it's much easier to move them forward. And there's so many also other organizations that are doing this work as well. So there's so many allies out there to be moving this forward. And yeah, so again, is preparing the pitch. That's where we're a big part of this, is to, you know, help be there to go through this with you. You know, as I mentioned again, that the you know, it's important to repeat, but you know, research the where the municipality's at. Ask for a sit-down meeting. I've done that many times with municipalities, and look for different allies. And once you have your asks, then you know, it makes it, like anything, so much smoother. And yeah, making the relationship mutual is always such an easy way to move through this process. Sorry,
Yeah, thank you, Paul, for sharing those effective lobbying techniques. And now that we've gone over them, it's, you know, let's take a look at what we can actually lobby for. So in the reforestation world, tree bylaws are extremely important and something to advocate for. So you can plant as many trees as you like in a city to increase canopy cover and the number of trees that you have. But in order to maintain this canopy cover and protect it over the long term, you need to have tree bylaws. So these are effective tools that can support canopy cover growth, promote climate change adaptation responses and biodiversity, and support tree equity, or in other words, an equitable distribution of canopy cover. So in Canada, some municipalities have tree bylaws, while others don't even have one. So, but among those that do, the effectiveness of the tree bylaw varies by municipality. And you can always advocate for your city to adopt components that would make the tree bylaw more effective. So here in this slide, we've listed some components of effective tree bylaws, and one of the components is having a private tree bylaw. So particularly when considering that the majority of trees in an urban environment are on private lands, it's important to ensure the long-term protection of these trees, especially because they're consistently being threatened by development. And a lower diameter limit, which prevents trees from a certain diameter from being cut, protects younger trees and facilitates regeneration, which is really important if you want to continually grow and expand your canopy cover without having any losses. So in Toronto and Mississauga, there's diameter limits of 30 and 15 centimeters respectively in their bylaws, but it would be recommended having a limit of 10 centimeters to ensure that younger trees are protected and regeneration is facilitated. Additionally, there's the importance of restricting loopholes that allow for tree removal. So for example, some of you may have heard of the recent controversial clear cutting in Ottawa, and that was allowed based on the exception that removal of trees is a part of normal farm practices. So it's important to be aware of what the exemptions to tree removal are in bylaws and to limit them. Something that you can also additionally advocate for is for your municipality to engage with the federal government's 2 billion tree program. So the 2 billion tree program was started in 2021 and will run for 10 years until 2031. The goal is to plant 2 billion trees by that time. And the government covers 50% of project costs for tree planting projects and also helps provide funds for capacity building activities such as nursery establishment. So in urban forestry, we're well aware that funds are always a major limiting factor. So it makes sense for cities to take advantage of this unique and golden opportunity, honestly. So it's important, and it's also an opportunity for organizations like yourselves to advocate and discuss with your city about the possibility of applying to either the tree planting, urban planting stream or the capacity building stream, and to try and build up that capacity and resources to increase urban canopy cover. And you can always reach out to Nature Canada and myself for support, as we can help you, provide resources on the program and also sit down in meetings with other stakeholders and city staff to work things through.
Thank you, Rakshan. I always love learning more about the different aspects of reforestation and different effective tree bylaws, especially with wildfires across the country. It's really important that we protect the trees that we have. So thank you for that. I also wanted just to take a moment to talk next about advocating for bird-friendly motions and activities within your city or town of any size. There are a variety of ways in which constituents, residents, and community members can take action to protect birds in their communities. The Bird-Friendly City program works on this in a variety of different ways, one of which is advocating for policies, municipal policies that are created to protect bird populations. Some are listed on the screen here. So the first one being bird-friendly design standards, which help to prevent window strikes within new development and even existing development if there's going to be changes to that. The second one being dark sky compliant light bylaws to reduce the impacts of light pollution on bird populations, especially during the migratory season. That light attracts them to the windows. Another one, of course, is no roam cat bylaws and responsible pet ownership bylaws. Nature Canada's sister campaign to bird-friendly cities, in which bird-friendly cities grew out of, was Cats and Birds. I'll share a link later on in the presentation within the chat. An amazing amount of resources for municipalities and community members when it comes to keeping cats indoors to save birds and keep cats safe. Another aspect of becoming a bird-friendly community and advocating for this within your municipality is World Migratory Bird Day proclamations, which happens twice a year, the second Saturday in May and second Saturday in October. Which of course is during peak spring and fall migration. This is an awesome time to celebrate the return of our feather friends to our neighborhoods, and by engaging with our municipal decision makers to perhaps proclaim World Migratory Bird Day and all that it stands for, as each year has a unique conservation theme. This will help raise the awareness and education of the importance of birds within municipalities by directly discussing this with your councils. And finally, there is over 20 municipalities in the country that have passed resolutions and motions of support in regards to becoming bird-friendly and adhering to Nature Canada's bird-friendly city criteria, which lays out an action plan for municipalities to take action to reverse the loss of birds within their neighborhood. And just as an aside here, if you want more information, feel free to go to naturecanada.ca/BFC to learn more. And Paul is going to talk about next an example of nature-based climate solutions and advocating for them in a municipal landscape.
Thanks, Adam. Yeah, so I guess, we're at that part of the presentation where we'll, discuss what tools Nature Canada has to offer. So the nature-based climate solutions, we have a toolbox online that I'll put in the chat here shortly. And so, they've really done a great job of thinking everything through from A to Z. And And one example of that is just what we have here is a motion outline that what you can bring to council. And so with, again, working with us, we can help, like if you are interested, there's so much to be done, as we all know, but if nature-based climate solutions interest you, or forestry, or the bird-friendly cities, we have tools for all those programs. And again, that it's all online, and we're here to help. So this is just one example of a motion that you go to council with if you're feeling that the municipality isn't doing what they need to do. Or again, go back to our earlier slides where you're going through their environment plans or their different planning plans that you're able to, you want to move the municipality forward. And that this is just one example to be able to, really use our democratic system. And we're all citizens of country, of course, but then of our own municipalities, and working in this democratic system, this is the way to use the work within the system to move things forward. So yeah, again, this is just one example of a motion on nature-based solutions, but again, we have the same thing for all of our programs, and we're here to support. That is our role at Nature Canada, is to support groups on the ground and to help move these forward. Autumn?
Thank you, Paul. So yeah, as mentioned, there's a variety of different ways in which Nature Canada's organizing team can help different organizations, clubs, and community groups of all different sizes in advocating for bird-friendly cities, reforestation coalitions, or nature-based climate solutions within their communities. Each program hosts community of practices with their network. Just speaking to the bird-friendly city side of things, I host 2 quarterly community of practice meetings with the entire network, one for folks on the East Coast, so Eastern provinces, Maritimes, Quebec, and then one for the rest of the country. This allows for a chance to network and connect with groups who are working on similar campaigns and issues, and you can learn from one another, share roadblocks and successes. Nature Canada also provides one-on-one support, feedback and tips, coaching for council delegations, as well as templates on motions, and a variety of different resources and proclamation templates, bylaw recommendations and guides, as well as companionship guides and toolkits that are all at your fingertips for municipal decision makers to review, as well as individual community members and residents. Nature Canada's organizing team is also available to attend council delegation meetings if the time arises, where you may need some extra support. We're more than happy to do that. And if you would like some additional information on any of these program areas or the resources that we have available, we will be following up with all attendees of today's webinars with a variety of different resources, and we hope that they will be of useful to you. And yeah, thank you all for listening today. We have a lot of time left for question and answer here. I did see some folks already put some questions into the chat here, directed most likely to Rakshan for trees, so we'll make sure to get to those. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your lunch hour today to join us. My email is listed on the screen here today. If you have any questions about the Bird Friendly City program, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thank you all so much. I'm going to stop sharing the screen in just a moment. If you want to take a second to note down our email addresses, pass it over to you, Rakshan.
Sure. Yeah, thank you, Autumn. Yep. So I'll start by just rephrasing our answer to John's question earlier about why is there a requirement to plant native trees. So that's an extremely good point. So it's really important to plant native species, but our understanding is that cities are not having such a requirement in order to establish more climate resilient forests, because our climate is changing, and now there's more processes such as assisted migration, which involves pulling tree species from from the south up to the north, because in the belief that these tree species would thrive and are better suited to live in the future climate of the city than existing native species. So that might be a reason, but I mean, like, we're not entirely sure. But yes, and for Susan's question, so is there a particular tree, and what kind of tree would it be that supports the most number of species? So to answer Susan's question, so it really varies by context, obviously. So like, there's a variety of native species, and that depends on like what region you're living in. But really, though, it's like there isn't really an answer to that, because like in a lot of times in municipalities, urban forest cover is grown by planting on private lands. So that includes like backyards, like boulevards, and also public property, such as street allowances. So a lot of the emphasis is placed on what trees are drought tolerant, what trees are like tolerant to urban urban threats, such as like increased salt levels, increased pollution levels. So it's a matter of like understanding what trees do best in those scenarios, and planting them accordingly. And I think I'll pass it on to Paul. He has some questions.
It's coming. So the program I was discussing was ICLEI's Agent of Change, and I'm putting it here in the chat right now. Save answer. Yeah, so it's exciting to see this. I think that worked. Can you see? Yeah, so basically there's 10 municipalities across the country that are being trained on how to effectively work with groups like yourselves. And so it's, and like I say, it's in the pilot stage right now. So with the 10 municipalities, and they're all listed there on the website. So hopefully maybe I'll put it in the group chat as well, so everyone can see it. And yeah, I have a feeling you may see that it's they're doing it in your community, so it'd be a great way to to get on part of the pilot. Or if you're not, then you could reach out to ICLEI, very friendly, great folks, and say that you'd be interested in, and or you could bring it forward to your municipality. Again, it's a great way to build a relationship with them, to let them know, because ICLEI is it's a worldwide organization that works with the municipalities, but I deal mostly with ICLEI Canada. But it's very well respected within municipalities. So the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, or ICLEI, or the different provincial associations as well, is another great way to move things forward. And it's, we didn't discuss that in the slides, but that's another great avenue to work with, to move things forward within your municipality. And if you're looking that it's like, we need to do this provincial wide, then working with your champion on council, the process where they can work with their provincial municipal associations or territorial associations across the country is a great way to move things forward, so that you kind of spread what you're doing in one municipality. So if you're doing something really amazing and you think, man, more municipalities need to do this, working through the provincial associations of the municipalities is a great way. And then when it gets, starts to build some momentum within the provincial or territorial association, then it moves up the next step to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and then it makes it national. So, there's definitely ways that we can be working the system, as in, also with federally, provincially, getting involved in elections as well is another great way. So, I know I was chatting with a woman in Port Hope, Ontario, and she was always just like one of us on the outside, and she decided to throw her hat in the ring and ran for council, and now she's on the inside doing this work. So yeah, it's definitely there's lots of avenues, because as we know, sitting here in smoke with the future that we're all scared of, I think we're in the middle of it now, and more needs to be done. So the system's there for us to be able to use to move our agendas forward.
I
Any
think,
other-
yeah, there's a few more questions for you, Paul. I just clicked answer live from Lizbeth and Leif.
Where, okay, sorry. Could you read it out, Autumn, since you see it? Sorry. with that.
No worries. Is there a procedure in place to consult with First Nations for nature-based climate solutions, and what are your recommendations? The second question as well, thank you for your presentation. How would you recommend going about retrofitting an old building by using nature-based solutions? What resources are available to do this?
Great question. Oh, sorry, it's loud and echoey. We do, like, as you know, with the First Nations, and we're actually a large number of the staff are in training right now on best ways to build relationships with First Nations. We do have some tools, but I think it's more of a case-by-case basis, and I'd love to chat with you, offline to, understand what community you're in. Sorry, I'm not seeing the chats right now. So if you could reach out to me, P. Gregory at naturecanada.ca, I'd love to, chat with you more about this and, point you in the right direction for the tools that we have. And then, so I hope that answers your question. And actually, we have our training all day tomorrow, so I'll bring this up in our training just to have a better understanding. But it's very similar, as I was mentioning with the municipalities, is just building that one-on-one relationship at the beginning. But I'd love to be able to work with you to help you through this. And the second question, there is the green around buildings. There is the Green Building Council. They're actually in our building where Nature Canada is. So, again, I'd love to, chat with you offside here and work with you to help you through that. So there is a number of organizations. There's also, as I mentioned, the Green Municipal Fund from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So it's always nice to be able to go to a municipality to, to say, I know where there's money available. There's no shortage of money right now out there for green buildings. So I can help, make those connections for you. I hope those answer the questions.
Yeah, I think so. We do have another question from Alex in the chat there about Vancouver urban forest decline, how to reverse that and get to net again. I also want to mention stream keepers and removal of invasive, and fire departments don't like some trees. And I'm sorry to hear, Donna, that you are experiencing similar smoky weather in Vancouver. I hope that answers your question. Or sorry, I hope that is your question. And I'm not sure if you have a follow-up question to that, Rakshan.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and answer what I can, Alex. But yeah, so in terms, so urban forest loss, yeah, it's a normality, like for a lot of Canadian municipalities, and that's because of increasing densification and development, threatening urban forests. And I know Ingrid from Nature Regina also echoed her comments on that as well. So development is a big deal, and what I can say right now is that the primary way to kind of mitigate that threat is to try and get a tree bylaw in place, or to strengthen existing tree bylaws. And obviously, even then, there's going to be a lot of opposition from developers, and we're knowing that firsthand because Nature Canada is collaborating with some Edmonton organizations and advocating for a private tree bylaw in the city. So it's really important to understand, the importance of having a bylaw in place, but also working with, those who might be in opposition. So the developers, the businesses, and to try and work and find a compromise. But yeah, I agree with you, Alex. It's a really difficult situation, and hopefully we can work together. We can work towards advocating for more effective bylaws.
Thank you, Rakshan. Are there any other questions? Feel free to post them in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen there next to the chat, or in the chat itself. Great question, Ingrid. I would say that I don't know if Paul or Rakshan want to chime in here, but every voice counts, and not being quiet about it is my advice, and not letting them defeat us, and continuing to advocate for causes that are passionate to us, at all levels of government. However, today we are sticking to a municipal context.
I also wonder, now with all these extreme weather events that there's just so many people out there that still don't even believe in climate change. And, you just wonder, will this start to change and shift? And will that, kind of trickle down to government policy, political party policy? It's just, people must be feeling it now. Like the more, I guess all of us on this call, like we're all connected to nature in one way or another, or we wouldn't be in this work. And so, I guess we're a bit of I guess we're the kind of the canaries in the coal mine, so to speak. And I just wonder, will there be more people understanding this now and speak up? So, it's sad that it has to get to this point. And as Autumn was saying earlier, with just, we feel for the animals, for the forest, for the people being affected. But yeah, will this change the way Canadians look at environmental issues, climate, biodiversity loss? And yeah, I had a friend once at home. I remember he said that things are going to have to get worse before they get better. And as I'm saying, it's ecological though. Like these things are, it's not like something in your house that breaks, or this is huge. And it seems like we're at that stage right now. So if we can find any positivity in it, will this start to change the way Canadians think? Sorry for my rant or ramble. Yeah, we were talking about that as well, Heather.
Yeah, Heather, everything that you're saying in the chat there, I feel the same way. It's really scary to go through, especially if you have respiratory or have loved ones with respiratory issues. In regards to your question of the impacts of all the birds, migratory included, from the forest fires that are currently happening, I did a quick Google myself this morning. I'm not quite sure, I'd say it's species by species specific. And of course, trees are the main habitat for almost every bird. So I would say that they're being the most impacted by loss of habitat, and perhaps also nestlings, and food sources, and as well as whatever impacts it is on their physiology of breathing in the smoke, probably similar to other species and animals. Respiratory, I would say, but no bird vet here.
We were talking about that before this call started. Just the impacts of the fire on us personally, just sitting here in it right now, but also again, so many of us on the call, we've known this was coming of sorts. And so I guess like Heather said, part of it is the mentally emotional part of it as well, where it's a bit of our worst nightmares sort of thing. And it's a forest fire, they do happen naturally, so it's part of the system. But yeah, I guess it just seems to be hitting home.
To answer your question, John, great question. The Bird Friendly City criteria recommends and has a criteria in action for native pollinator gardens for bird gardening. However, that being said, non-native tree species are very readily planted in urban areas. municipality has their own reasoning why, but some birds have even adapted to these introduced species and the fruit that they produce. So when we're in the midst of, you know, that long relationship with introduced species and native species, many species can adapt to that new environment. And when we are going to switch to the native species, as long as we switch that introduced species with another like fruit bearing, if it's a food source for birds, then highly recommend to go that way. I hope that helps to answer your question. Then we also, fire prevention and urban forest interface can sometimes result in tree cutting in West Vancouver. What can they do?
Well, Donna, to like answer that question. Yeah, I mean, managing fire prevention is really important, and tree cutting is seen as a way of, like, you know, reducing fuels and you know, increasing safety. But again, you know, it's just a matter of, like, you know, working and continually having those discussions with you know, the urban forestry department, and, you know, trying to identify, you know, areas of trees that, you know, really need to be cut down and areas that can be left to be preserved. So, you know, just working and continually advocating for the department to take those considerations into mind would be a good way. So like we mentioned in the presentation, so Paul mentioned, you know, establishing that relationship with the urban forestry staff, the department, and, you know, trying to figure out, you know, what their existing procedures are and what their process is like, and how they try to address fire prevention, and you know, having them hear your suggestions and you know, your concerns about those would be a good way of trying to address that.
We thank you all for your questions and this really in-depth discussion today. We do still have about 11 minutes remaining, which will most likely just be dedicated to Q&A. So I wanted to thank you all again for attending today, and we really appreciate your time. We will stay on the call a bit more longer to answer your questions. We have another one in the chat there about site planning and working with developers to save trees. I'm not sure if you, Rakshan, have any personal experience in that, or if anyone from across the coalitions that you work with do.
Yeah, not necessarily. Like, we don't have as much experience yet, but as I mentioned earlier, Nature Canada is working with the group of Edmonton organizations and you know, trying to advocate for the implementation and development of a private tree bylaw in the city to protect, you know, over 45% of the trees that they have within the urban center. So like currently what we've done is, like, you know, where we've created like a sign-on letter with you know, with support from all sorts of organizations, and we're trying to convince council to, like, you know, discuss the idea of having a bylaw. And you know, I'd say that you know, working with developers, having these conversations and figuring out those compromises and that balance is like the next step. And you know, like, when we get there, I hope I can share more insights on that.
I know with some of my experience with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, so I was working on brownfields as well, which are contaminated sites, and I was working with developers, so that was my experience. And they're so busy because it's, you know, all they got is those dollar signs in their eyes. So that's, you know, all they're doing. They don't participate in too many webinars. But again, back to the relationship piece, or, you know, if you can't get their time, then, you know, maybe a little shaming always works, like a Facebook group and mentioning these folks and saying, you know, why aren't they doing this? Because, you know, if it affects their bottom line, they're gonna, you know, pick up the notice. But, you know, sometimes it's those ones that are, you know, the furthest against what you're trying to do. You know, once you do get through to them, they actually come around the other side. And as we know, nature's we're almost loving nature to death right now since COVID has started. So, you know, they know that people really are into nature. So, you know, that might be an angle as well, showing them that, you know, nature, and the business models are out there showing that, you know, if your house backs onto a park, it's worth this much money. If it's, so, you know, maybe look at it that way. There's two questions there. from Meta and Donna. Or was that the one we just, oh yeah, so with the insurance companies, I work with the Intact Center. I'll look them up and I'll put it in the chat as well, but yeah, they've been one of the best allies for a very long time, because again, like John said, it's just all dollar signs. So they've seen the writing on the wall decades ago, and they have some great assets, and that the general public can use, but then they also have some great staff that are more than willing to help out as well. So that, that'd be another great way. I know even with my nature-based solutions to bring those companies in, because it's getting to the point where that affects the municipal bottom line. They stand up and notice. So I'll put that in the chat, this Intact Center. There's a few more questions there, Roxanne and Autumn.
Unfortunately, Donna, in regards to your question of raising your hand, I am not co-host or host on this Zoom, so I would have to get my colleague Paul or Roxanne to be able to click allow to talk.
Let me actually do that.
There we go.
Absolutely, that works.
Okay, hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hello. I'm sorry, my handle seems to be Donna today. That's a long story, but anyway, thank you. I'm here in Vancouver, and hope you don't mind if I've still got my pajamas on, so it's kind of early. However, a couple of things I wanted to say. I really appreciate your advice about tree bylaws, and I have a little story about a tree. And I think one of my colleagues, Sherry, is here, but the city didn't have, where I live, the city of North Vancouver didn't have a bylaw. They basically were going to allow a developer to cut down a large cedar tree. A group of people got together and protested after the permits had been issued, and the developer actually capitulated. He changed his plans and managed to, without chopping down the tree. And that actually led us to various people to continue to work for a bylaw, and the city finally did adopt a bylaw. So I think a lot of it had to do with the press and articles in the local newspaper, and there was a petition on change.org that really embarrassed the developer. The city didn't really seem to care, but developers do not like bad publicity. So that's just supporting what you've said. And I think in retrospect, if somebody like Nature Canada had showed up at council and supported the idea of a tree bylaw, that might have helped. So good for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alex, for sharing that. Yeah, and I'm just gonna maybe answer a couple of questions. Ingrid, I believe. So yeah, so we hear you on chopping out all dead trees and growth. So yeah, snags or like standing dead trees, and like coarse woody fuels, like woody debris on the ground. They are regarded as fuels and might lead to fires. But yeah, so as you know, and as Autumn has probably been telling you guys, snags are really important for certain bird species such as woodpeckers, and an important criteria for bird-friendly cities. I'm not sure if within the reforestation or tree realm, if there's been resources about this for municipalities, but I'll let Autumn speak about maybe the importance of snags and the resources that are available for that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Roxanne. So snags are a really important habitat for birds, as you mentioned, and the Bird Friendly City program does lay this out within the second section when it comes to tree protection. However, in my experience, when applications come in and I pass them along to the scoring committee, many municipalities, even if they have a strong tree bylaw, do not specifically state or have anything about dead standing trees outside of removal when it comes to potential threats or dangers on municipality owned property. However, for example, in other cases, it's been a case-by-case basis in which the Conservation Authority leaves snags up, but it's not an official policy or practice. So I would encourage folks who are advocating for to encourage official definition and wording of snags. And I think that may be everyone's question today. Alex, in case you didn't see it, Mary says in the chat that there's a small tree protection group in West Vancouver, Urban Tree Alliance. If you haven't checked that out yet, if other folks in the area want to as well, that sounds great.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for being here today. Nature Canada's organizing team is excited to answer any other questions that you might have about our nature-based climate solutions, reforestation, or bird-friendly city programs. And you should get an email from one of us in the coming days about the follow-up resources that we have available for you. And this recording will also be made available on Nature Canada's YouTube channel if you or your friends are curious about watching it at a later date. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
We really appreciate it.